Hi everyone, good morning. Welcome to KL Startup Summit. This is panel session 2, where we discuss about what do startups need, right? Just before we start, I'd like to introduce our panel. So we have Nadhir Ashafiq, who is the founder of TheLorry.com and Endeavor entrepreneur. We have Yusnee Rahmat, he's a senior manager at Magic. We have Johnathan Lee, country manager for Rise. And we have Bikesh, who is the founder of Lead. Just before we start, right? Maybe Nadhir, Yusnee, Johnathan, and Bikesh, maybe you guys could just introduce yourself, like more on what you do on a day-to-day basis, so that our listeners can actually know more about you guys.
Okay, who's me?
Nadhir, yeah, please.
Youngest better. Okay, fine. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? My name is Nadhir, one of the co-founders and executive director of TheLorry. We are a digital logistics platform connecting customers, both corporate and individuals, to owners of trucks, vans, and pickup trucks in 4 countries: Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore. And of course, how we do this is through the power of technology and data. I guess what I do on a daily basis, I actually do a lot of different things, but a lot of it is already delegated to managers. But I oversee a lot of the product, technology, and the tech part of the company, as well as marketing. And of course, whenever there's any firefighting needs to be done, I'm usually there to firefight. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. Good morning. Yusnee here from Magic. I'm in charge for the international partnership in Magic. I came to Magic since 2015, looking into the partnership between Magic and all the ASEAN countries. But now we have gone beyond ASEAN. We are very much support. If you look at the entire ecosystem of startup entrepreneurship, we are actually at the end of the helping a startup to the growth stage. I've been working closely with a lot of ecosystem, either within the Malaysian and also the ASEAN, and I'm happy to share my knowledge here. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Johnathan, and I'm the country head for Rise in Malaysia. Rise is a corporate innovation powerhouse, and we work with public listed company, international MNCs to accelerate their growth by bridging them to technology companies, startups globally. In my previous role, I was an ex-nation builder with Yusnee at Magic. Over to you.
Hey, my name is Bikesh, founding partner of Lead Ventures, Lead spelt 1337, another session, that one. We are the crazy early stage investors in this country, ran the first accelerator in Malaysia. So we are the first person that basically writes you a check, sort of like an angel round, even though you come to us with a PowerPoint presentation. So we take a chance on startups, and nowadays help a lot of corporates with their innovation. So our role is to figure out how to bridge the two. Startups who can basically solve corporate innovation, then you get a bigger check.
Nice. Thank you so much for your quick introductions. So the question today is, what do startups need, right? So this question assumes that all startups are one homogeneous group, right? Where all their needs are pretty much the same. But perhaps that is not the right thing to say, because different startups may require different needs, right? They have different needs depending on their stage and all that, right? Perhaps I can just post this to Bikesh, right? You have seen a lot of startups, thousands of startups that you have helped over the years, right? What do you think fundamental needs or things that startups need in order for them to go to market or to even ideate or to start? Yeah.
All right. So from the overall, I mean, we've invested in Malaysia since 2012. I've lost a lot of money, and that allowed me to learn a lot. I've made back the money though, so I'm kind of happy. 3 things that go wrong when they fail, where I've written off my money. They built something, we fall in love with the idea, but there was no market need because it was too sexy. But back then we were so young, we just throw money into stuff because it was cool. But the no market need. So I'm talking about the failure, and I get back to the needs, right? They ran out of cash because they just couldn't raise enough time or didn't have people to believe in them in the next rounds. And the third one was they just didn't have the right team to take it on to the severe different stages. So that's how the three main challenges we've seen in terms of startups. So if you go back based on that, no market need, ran out of cash, not the right team, what they need was an idea worth solving, right? The problem, how much the problem is a big problem to be solved, to not be in love with the idea too much, but to be able to walk away if you don't think it's big enough, that's one. And also in the searching for that idea, is it breakthrough enough? So, the whole Me Too idea space that doesn't work, so that's going to affect you in fundraising later. So they need a great idea that's worth solving. That's one. I'll just generalize as that. We can go deeper later. The second one, I think that's actually the bigger one, is it's the people. And that's the reason why you run out of cash, because you don't have the right people to get the confidence of the investors. You don't have the right people to scale it beyond that. You don't have the right people to figure out how to get market validation done. And because you need money, that was also because you didn't have the right people. If the right people were there in terms of the developers, the designers, the entrepreneur who's the salesperson, then you could bootstrap, right? You could go as far as possible with just the team without so much access to money. But the third part to contradict that is that there is a money element that you need, but not so much as this, I need a grant, I need funding, but you need to have a plan to know how to make money. There's no point starting a business if you say that, I'll figure out the business model, I'll figure out the revenue model later. You may activate it later, but at the initial point, know this product can be charged, can make money. You have those three main elements, the idea, the people, the money, and you're off to a great start. So that's my quick answer first.
Nice. Thanks, Bikesh. I think I would just like to jump to Nadhir, right? Just build on what Bikesh mentioned, right? So, what were your, I think a lot of people are wondering, like right now, TheLorry, they are at a different stage, right? You've been in business for about 5-6 years. Like at the beginning, right? When you were just about to start up, right? What were the things that you needed in order for you to go to market, or, to validate your idea and all that, right? What were the fundamental stuff that you required before you started?
Cool, thank you. I think I'll go over the history of starting TheLorry. Prior to starting TheLorry, I actually started another social networking startup, right? I just went in, just guns blazing cowboy style. Didn't know what I was doing. We basically said, we knew everything. We were the experts of everything because we had some knowledge of it. And of course, when we launched the product to the market, nobody took it up. There was no product market fit. The customers that we tended to target, were way off. Someone else downloaded the app and someone else used the app and didn't use it to our specifications. So when I started TheLorry, I wanted to reset, right? So immediately what was I picked up books, definitely. Of course, Eric Ries's Lean Startup was essentially a key reading for any startup enthusiast, number one. Number two, I made sure that I basically found a mentor, or went into a certain ecosystem, because I knew that if I were to do this in a silo again, I'll probably fail, right? So I actually applied for some accelerators and managed to join this accelerator called Cyberview Living Lab Accelerator with Watchtower and friends. And they basically really helped me put things into perspective, in terms of going to market, in terms of funding, in terms of commercialization, as well as mentorship, a very, very key component, right, of building a startup, which is mentorship. So I would say that, if let's say I did not take that move, i.e. Joining a program of some sort, and really help me see things the way how startups should think, I think I'll probably fail again, right? But thanks to all the guidance and the mentorship that I received in the early stages, that really helped me put things into perspective, and I would say contributed to the early success of TheLorry.
Thank you so much, Nadhir. Let me just go to Yusnee. So Yusnee, as part of the ecosystem, so I think among all of the panelists here, you are part of the government, right? So what do you think, over the years, you have seen many startups come into Magic, right? What do you think are the things that they require? I understand that custom tailored programs that you offer to these startups, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you think are the stuff that you think is lacking with the with the current crop of founders, Malaysian founders, and what do you think that they actually require? I mean, money aside, right? Money.
Sure.
Every time you ask, what do you need? I need money, right? I mean, apart from money, I'm pretty sure there are other things that are at play, which are not highlighted as much. Then I'll.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Nash. I'm privileged to be in Mac for the last 5 years. I've been since 2015. I also used to be the same team with John. And being an ecosystem builder, I mean, as a government entity, what we should be doing, actually, we're supposed to enable. Hence where we work together closely, people like Bcash and in Barrage and ecosystem. We know for a fact that for a startup ecosystem, either be it in Malaysia, in ASEAN, or even globally, there's always two things. Like you said just now, you make it very clear, is funding, one part. Second part is market access, right? So I guess even being a part of the international partnership where we travel, a lot of startup, when they start, they probably need things like support, like what Nadhir mentioned, mentorship. Got some sort of subject matter expert to tell them what they should be doing, what should be looking at. But one thing that, even because I came from IDC before, I was for market research. One thing that a lot of startup, even corporate, are not doing enough in terms of doing research when it comes to data points. Sometimes the decision made based on instinct, right? So hence, this is where I believe if they say, you could look at this way, if a startup have a product and services have demand, right? That means the customer will pay for it. Funding is probably just another means to make sure that they can grow. But market access is something that actually is, not that most organizations are not pushing to it. So I think from our perspective, apart from doing capacity building, we know for a fact that Magic running program, throughout the year, hundreds of programs. We touch base from the idea stage all the way to growth stage, all the way to now we're doing expansion growth globally. Which is edited by my team, we call it the global market fit. We're trying to bring nation startup abroad. It's all about market access. Now we covered about market access. So hence, I think this is something that very important. If they say startup, this is why if you notice this recently, under the MOSTI, we also embarked into a program called NTIS, National Technology Innovation Sandbox. It's all also about commercialization and market access. So this is something that actually Magic is, putting a lot of it, and to see how we can support the startup ecosystem.
Thank you so much, Yusnee. Just going to John, right? So John previously was with Magic, and now he has gone into the private sector. He's the country manager for Rise, right? So John, I think over the years, right? So the same question to all the three other panelists, right? Are there any other needs that you think which are not addressed yet, or do you feel that currently the ecosystem is lacking some building blocks that can propel our farm further, right? I think I have a keen interest to just check your opinion. Like, I mean, if we were to compare ourselves to Singapore, right? I think maybe you could just tell us like what are the things that we are lacking behind, or some things which we have done better than them.
Thanks for the tough question, Nash. Save the tough question for me. But I think in my 15 years or so in the ecosystem, I think Malaysia has done quite a lot of stuff. So from trying to build a more holistic funding ecosystem to having like variety of different type of training programs, including one of the pioneers in accelerator programs. Like when Bcash ran it at that time, I don't think any other countries, maybe apart from Singapore, will have an equivalent accelerator program. So I think Malaysia has done a lot of things to actually support the ecosystem. But one of the things I do want to take note is, a lot of our entrepreneurs don't necessarily just compete in Malaysia. So because Malaysia, by essence, is also a very small market, a lot of times they will go overseas and they will go and get funding from Singapore, for example, and then maybe even be domiciled there. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, because Singapore does have a very strong investment ecosystem or financing ecosystem there. But what I would love to see is a lot more of our entrepreneurs stay in Malaysia, still compete globally, but just stay in Malaysia. There are very good examples of Malaysian companies competing on the regional global market, but they are domiciled here. So companies like Imagine, companies like even TheLorry, companies like SoftSpace, who are competing, around the region, getting market access, but they are headquartered here. So I think I would just personally, this is a personal thing, I would love to see more companies domicile here, because at the end of the day, even going back 5 years ago, we talked about creating this critical mass of startups in Malaysia, where till today, 5 years later, we don't have the critical mass, and partly because of a few things. Like, one is because there's a high churn rate for startups. Startups get started, startups go into market for a couple of years, then they die off, then they get restarted, right? So there's, at any one point of time, there's not enough critical mass of startups. The other one is the startups are doing really well, generally would go to Singapore to fundraise, and sometimes due to fundraising mechanisms, they may have to be domiciled there. Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but if you look at even claiming unicorn companies today, Grab is really now a Singapore unicorn, right? Lazada is also a Singapore unicorn, and Lazada, we all know, when they first started, although they had two presence, but Malaysia was kind of like their big market, even though they had a presence in Singapore. So a lot of these things, when we talk to our sort of like network of partners around the world, they still ask like, hey, where are your Malaysian champions? And then if I mention Grab, it's like, hey, that's not a Malaysian champion. You're just trying to steal somebody else's, thunder. So I think, again, I feel this is a very personal thing. I don't mean to sound like I'm biased towards Malaysia, but being Malaysian, I want to support Malaysia. I think a lot could be done to just try to retain the best talent here in Malaysia, because this best talent will go on and create new opportunities, right? If they are already in another country, they are creating the opportunities in other markets, right? So what can we do to kind of retain this talent in Malaysia? And there are many, I think, things that we can do. I'm not suggesting there's one magic bullet for it. And I want to just implore that for the ecosystem builder, a lot more experimental is needed to kind of see what would work for a country like Malaysia. We're not big enough to compete with the likes of Indonesia. We're not the default financial hub of Southeast Asia like Singapore. So what can we do to kind of like make sure that we stay ahead of the game, right? And one of the things I do want to mention is Malaysia do have very good talent, very good entrepreneurs that are always thinking outside the box, right? The problem is they don't stay in Malaysia long enough. So that's just my long story, and long ranting, I should say. Yeah, over back to you, Nash.
Thank you, John. I think I sort of agree with you, right? It seems like when you speak to businesses around Southeast Asia, they do notice that Malaysia seems to be the bedrock of good founders, right? But it's just that, when it comes to the next level of their business expansion and all these kind of things, Singapore then sees an opportunity and get over and change their holding company over to Singapore, right? I think that it has been happening quite rampant, in the last 5 to 6 years.
Sorry, Nash, if I can just add one more note, like Malaysia has been trying to, I mentioned critical mass, we've been trying to push for critical mass for the longest time, but Singapore has had it, right? And Singapore, a country of 4 million, has done it because they can just draw all these entrepreneurs from Southeast Asia to Singapore. So that's what they've done really, really well.
Thank you, John. So quick reset. So we do have a Q&A tab on the right. So we have about 82 folks who are listening in to our panel. So let me just draw one question from here. So maybe I can post this to John. John, what's your number one wish list to boost our startup ecosystem? You can maybe cover it quickly, and then we can come back to this maybe towards the end of the panel, because I think this is something that can sort of like summarize our panel much later. It's a good question anyway.
Thanks. My personal wish list is to try to double down on the investment side, and not just looking at just more money, but looking at diversity and inclusion in terms of investment. Again, this is a very personal thing. I feel that we do have a lot of very good entrepreneurs, both female and male entrepreneurs. And you know, I was part of a fellowship that's trying to drive more diversity into the startup system. So I would love to see a lot more investment opportunities that looks at, you know, founders that may not necessarily get the opportunity to get funding and create that kind of inclusivity for them. And again, this is a personal thing.
Thank you, John. Perhaps I take another question, then we can circle back to the Q&A. Maybe this I could ask Bikesh. So the question is from, wait a second. Okay, the question is from Michael Tiong. He's asking, may I know from your experience how those successful startups find their good people/partners, and what are those people/partners characteristics?
It's the other way around. People find good startups to work for, right? If you're doing something good and it's known, people will come knocking on your door. So of course, if you really had to find a tool, I think most of our startups will rely on LinkedIn, and you just ping people. You'd be surprised. I mean, if you're on LinkedIn, that means you want to be connected to, you want to be asked questions, you want to be offered things. So it's fine to ping someone on LinkedIn, but you know how you ping someone. Like I think Nadhir pinged me for the first time and he wanted something and he said he needed this. I didn't even reply him, right? So it's more like what value do you want to bring to the table, and also want someone to give back. And you'd be surprised the kind of talent you can basically have access to on LinkedIn, and they're willing to at least listen to you and talk to you and try and help you with your startup journey. And then it's not just about, oh, I kind of fought them. We've seen some startups that we have access to super duper talent who'd want to do it practically for free, just in terms of having equity or having a part of the company because they believe in it. So if you cannot sell that dream and you can't hire that, then that's a fundamental issue that you have to solve. Why wouldn't someone want to join your killer startup if it was a killer startup? And that's the hard question you have to ask yourself.
Thank you so much, Bikesh. So let me just cycle through some of the Q&A question. Nadhir, there's a question specifically for you. So the question reads like this. This is from Matthew Kulai, who's asking, what do startup in the logistic industry need to do to validate their ideas? But I think you could probably cover the validation regardless of industry. So, or unless there is a industry-specific answer to that.
Cool. Maybe I could just touch a little bit on the topic earlier, which is on what the ecosystem stuff, right? So just very quick one. I feel that what we at the moment, I think we have all the components, i.e., of course, we have the funding ecosystem, we have the mentorship ecosystem, we have a good corporate startup partnership ecosystem, of course, government agencies who are really trying to build more startups. But I think one thing that perhaps couldn't be incentivized is, or we're not really spending a lot of time incentivizing, is getting people to be entrepreneurs. I.e., we do have a lot of talent, like what Yusnee mentioned, but they probably don't want to take risk, right? So how do we incentivize them to take some risk? So we're talking about, say, a data scientist, a machine learning engineer who has fantastic idea on how to build products that could really solve huge pain points, right? But perhaps they just do not want to get rid of their 20,000 ringgit, 30,000 ringgit job, right? And because they have family, they have commitments. So we have to think of some solutions as to how we could motivate them, perhaps by creating some sort of program, perhaps by, of course, funding is a very crucial component here. They need to be assured that when they leave their corporate job, when they leave their very comfy a profession, that will have something to of course, to pay their bills, right? So that's a very, very quick note from me on how to further boost the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem in Malaysia. On validation, I would say the quickest response to that would be you gotta use whatever is in your hands, right? I.e., what I mean by this is don't try to spend so much money in terms of validating. Use whatever resources that you have. Either build a very simple blog, either doing very simple experiments on Google Ads. There's a lot of ways for you to actually validate whether the product that you're trying to sell, or even a very simple version of the product that you want to sell, have any market or even any customers at all, right? So just to share my experience at TheLorry. So what we did was we created a very simple landing page, right? And this was in 2014. We're talking about very early days of the Uber for X movement, right? So at that time, it was My Taxi. It wasn't even Grab yet, right? And we experimented, or even the simple hypothesis is, would people book a service, right, that costs 250 ringgit, i.e. moving services, pindah rumah, online, right? So that's a big hypothesis, because we actually do not know whether that would whether they will even do that, right? And we're talking about the infancy of e-commerce, right? People perhaps are still very wary of e-commerce. People are still wary of giving out their credit cards in those days. So what we did was just a very simple landing page. I basically learned some basic coding. It wasn't fantastic, and we ran some Google ads, we ran some Facebook ads, and attracted some customers. And from there onwards, we iterated and to where we are today. So I would say the conclusion would be just start, just experimenting, and then you will learn a bit more about what you're trying to sell.
Thank you so much, Nadhir. Very good points. So there's another question which I would like to maybe post it to Yusnee. So the question is from Adrian. Would you agree that we need to consider how to make Malaysia more attractive to venture caps, either those in Southeast Asia or from other parts of the world, in order for startups to be domiciled in Malaysia? If yes, how do we make Malaysia become more attractive? Maybe we can start with Yusnee, and if the rest of the panelists just want to add on, please feel free.
Yeah, thanks, Nash. I think again, it's all back to the the demand and supply, right? I think we will be talking about this morning, that Malaysia has also been doing quite a lot of stuff, especially from the government's perspective, agencies. We run a lot of programs, we run a lot of initiative, even like what Nadhir was mentioning. One of the things that we're trying to find a formula is to how to make people have a entrepreneurship mindset. The thing is that you can be anything. You can either be engineer, you can be farmers, you can be doctors. But if you don't have that entrepreneurship mindset, chances is you're not going to be able to come up with something new. So hence, I think to even bring, because from my side, actually, I've been talking a lot of external parties, because we are doing the international partnership. We're talking to, even recently, I've been talking to a couple of investors are based in Singapore. They say, hey, I'm keen to come and do something with you guys, but I don't think you guys have enough volume for me to come in. I said, what do you mean by volume? So you say, they want to see, a bigger scale. Back to the question that John just mentioned, we try to create, that mass. But I think this is one thing during this conversation that I had with my colleague. She was saying that, hey, you know what? There's only two sports in Malaysia that we are good at: badminton and squash. And I guess if we can build at least one, this champion, I think the rest can see the value. Having, if that person can do, I can do as well. So I suppose here what we try to say is that if we can build a story, right? This is what Singapore doing very well. They build a story, they create that platform that this is where you need to be. So I guess bringing more foreign startup coming to Malaysia. I to be honest, there was a question asked me. Someone asked me, because we run this program we call My Startup Hub. We try to actually how to bring other foreign startup to come to Malaysia. And the question by even our board directors, why might you do that? Another thing that you need to be actually compete healthy. And so somehow, I mean, hypothetical situation. If you go to anywhere, you want to look for a restaurant, you look for someone that have a lot of customers, am I right? So the same thing. So if you see a lot of entrepreneurship going.
Yusnee, I think we lost you. Perhaps you refresh first. In the meantime, maybe either John, Nadhir, or Bikesh can answer. So the question was, how do you make Malaysia more attractive? I think we can expand this to beyond venture caps, even corporations or what.
So I think a lot is to do still with the corporate sector. I think we just have to stop asking government can do what the government can do. Look at all the other big countries. You think Microsoft's waiting for what the government can do, what Google's waiting for the government can do. They just go ahead and get stuff done. So I think if everyone just went out and built great companies and is kept, someone asked, what is the number one thing ecosystem needed? Startups to focus. Focus on your startup, focus on the idea, focus on your customers, get shit done. Everything else will fall in place. People will come to you to basically give you money. People will want to come to Malaysia to get access to deal flow earlier because this is where the great ideas were seeded. Yes, they go to other countries and that will happen eventually, but they will want to be part of the journey initially because that's when you get the best deal trying to invest into it, right? So I think it's just some things as basic as that. If there is something we can do in the ecosystem, I think that's one of the other number one things that startups need is customers. The Malaysian government, it could be the biggest customer to any particular startup. Start buying local, right? Start building stuff that people need, and then they will have things to buy. And the government basically figure out how to buy solutions from you. Can corporate Malaysia basically figure out how to buy stuff from you? Can the SMEs use you? That's all what we're trying to do with the whole digitization strategies and all. So build stuff that matters, build stuff that people need. Yes, Malaysia is a small market, but an SME is an SME. You can figure out something here that a Malaysian SME wants. Chances are it's an SME in another country also needs it. How to figure out distribution? Well, that's your challenge as a founder to figure out. Hire smart people. Maybe then MDEC would make sense to be a partner because they're great at biz dev, right? They will always want to take you out to a different country, but don't go so fast. But they could take your product to another market for you and leverage them. But first, you got to give them a good product for them to help you grow. So don't sit down there and say, like, MDEC's not doing anything for me. What do you expect them to do if you don't have a goddamn product for them to sell? So I think that's what we need to do a lot in terms of need. Focus.
Thank you, Bikesh. Follow-up question to you, right? Do you feel there's a very great rapport between the corporate sector and all the various government agencies today? Do you think the relationship is rock solid, or it still needs to be improved upon? Because personal comment, I feel that maybe the two are not in sync. Maybe not 100%. But what are your thoughts on?
I mean, corporates want to make money. Governments want to take your money in terms of taxes, right? It's always going to be that rift. So the idea is how to help each other. I think it's something that they can work on. I like actually what Magic's trying to do with the NTIS. I think that's an easy way, because NTIS is saying, I want to create all these sandboxes for you to experiment different things. And I want each corporate to take charge of something. Like, could AgroBank take charge of the agriculture sandbox? Could one of the banks take charge of a financial sandbox, and like versa? And then they can tell these guys, like, if you find great ideas in your space, the government may want to give a grant to some of these things. So a corporate, again, thinking the bottom line all the time, will figure out how to bridge this, right? Now, here is a solution that I want to onboard into my problem space and solve it for my customers so I gain. I'm going to use a startup for that. And there's a grant to help them help me without me putting in money. And that's something corporates won't do yet, because a lot of them don't have the mandate to invest. You can't just say overnight, get corporates to invest. It doesn't happen, right? There's a whole lot of things that needs to happen before a corporate can do that. But the government can facilitate that, saying, don't worry, I know you need the solution. You can't invest in it. So let me basically reallocate a grant for that purpose. So at least now this startup has a really big customer, a corporate that's backed with the government to make this deal happen. And that's how you can engineer success, right? You want to build a unicorn, you literally have to build it. You have to move these little pieces together and make these things happen. It's not going to just happen by chance. I mean, it can, but it's going to be a long time before it happens by chance.
You're right there. Thank you so much, Bikesh. I like to, Yusnee, are you back? Okay, Yusnee is having some connection issues. Perhaps maybe we can go towards John, and after that, maybe Nadhir can chime in as well, right? So the question is, how do we make Malaysia sexy, right? Not only for VCs, but also.
I think, yeah, go ahead, sorry. Nash, are you done with the questioning? I didn't quite catch you there.
Nadhir, you're muted. I think Nadhir knows the question. So Nadhir, what else would you add in terms of making Malaysia?
Sorry, I was actually trying to kutuk Nash. because
Yeah.
it was really bad. Okay, to make it sexy, I think a lot of has already been mentioned by the other panelists. Things like funding, I think in the early stages, there was a lot of hoo-ha in terms of creating a fund of fund, right? So a fund that would invest in VC funds in Malaysia. And I think this was an initiative that was started, I guess, in 2017, 2018. It got delayed and delayed and delayed. And finally, last year, Penjana Capital came about. So I think that's a big win to the industry. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about execution. And we the startup ecosystem players, are really hoping for a fantastic execution on this part. But other than that, a lot of it's already been mentioned. Corporate buy-ins. We're talking about funding. We're talking about mentorship. We're talking about talent. But I think another thing that could be said is regulatory risk, right? So how do we ensure that our regulation and also our courts will be so independent, right? Will be attractive enough for more institutional funds to put their money here, right? How do we create a certain perception that we are much better than Singapore when it comes to this area? And I think if we further implement that, and to me, the solution sounds like a combination of both. It sounds like political solution as well as a wholesome intervention by the whole government in order to done. But I think once we fix this, we should be able to win, right? Versus Vietnam, versus Philippines, and the other competitor in this space.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Nadhir mentioned. So, any good ecosystem around the world, even the most mature ecosystem, always have some form of government support at varying levels. If you look at how the ecosystem in Singapore is structured, of course, the Singapore government has a war chest that they are investing back into the ecosystem. But harking back to the point that what Kesh and Nadhir mentioned is also we want to get more private sector to participate, and maybe the carrot is something that the government can offer, for example, like the funds of funds, right? And you look at a lot of mature ecosystem, again, the private sector is actually playing a very active role because the corporations know that eventually some of these startups are going to be disrupting their market. If they don't get into the game early enough to work with these guys, then eventually 5 years down the line, 8 years down the line, 10 years down the line, they're going to just be disrupted by the startup players that are coming into the market. So to make Malaysia sexy, I think Malaysia already has a lot of right things in place. And over the last 10, 15, even the funds of funds, right? If you look at it, even MAVCAP, our largest VC fund, has a fund of fund responsibility. And it's not new. They've been doing it for many years. The point is we've already done this. Like, what we do to scale this, right? And it's not just a matter of government putting money there, but how do we encourage or have policies to encourage private sector to come in and play in this game with the rest of the ecosystem? I think that will certainly be more attractive to any investors, any sort of like startups that are looking to come to this part of the world. If they can get access to market in Malaysia, why not? Malaysia is actually a very good test bed for foreign startups because we have very friendly startup policies. The amount of localization needed in Malaysia is probably less than if you were imagine going into, say, Vietnam or Thailand or Indonesia, right? And it's good enough market size for you to kind of get a good traction for the region before you go into other key markets. So Malaysia itself, although we do lack size and we do lack investors as compared to Singapore and Indonesia, but we have other things that are working for us, right? It's a matter of us also educating the rest of the world that, hey, Malaysia is really, really the heart of Southeast Asia. Not just geographically the heart of Southeast Asia, but we're really smack right in the middle of the excitement, right? So that's something that we need to shout out a little bit. Nash. I think Nash is... Nash, are you there? Okay, Bikesh, you are now the default moderator.
Yeah, so let's just take a question from the poll. Someone was saying that they've got a clear idea how a product can make money, but he's taking time to build it because he's doing it part-time. What's your feedback? What advice would you give him about building something on a part-time basis? And you're so sure this can make money. Nadhir, what would you tell him?
Okay, fantastic. Okay, I get this a lot, right? So there are a lot of entrepreneurs, like I said earlier, there are a lot of good ideas around, and of course we have fantastic talent, but they just don't have that push, right? They don't want to become entrepreneurs because they're scared. They're scared that if it doesn't work, then they cannot get a job, then they'll probably ruin their life and blah, 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 right? So that's probably why you are opting for a part-time endeavor. But here's the reality, okay? Here's the reality. In the early stages, when you're experimenting, so the startup lingo is prior to product market fit, you can actually do this. So you can spend your nights and weekends trying to experiment, trying to find early adopters, and and you could consider it a project, not even a company, right? You could say a project that you could work on during your spare time and see how it goes, whether there's actually any traction at all. And the moment you reach some form of product market fit, i.e., people essentially, a lot of people bought it, right? Paid you money for it, and they would recommend other people to buy from you. Then at that point, I do not think you could run things part time. It's very, 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 very difficult, right? For you to run things part time, and I get this a lot, right, from entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs who say, hey, I have this idea, that idea, but the thing is, I'm still working. Do you think, I could be successful or even go forward when I'm doing part time? I would say it's very difficult. The reason being is because startups are really difficult, right? Startups are really hard, right? The analogy that's always often used is you are jumping, gaung apa bahasa English? You're jumping down the hill or jumping off a mountain, right? While building an airplane at the same time, right? That's literally how a startup is. That's how a startup is functioning, right? So it's actually very difficult. And if you're not full time into it, high chance you are going to, you're gonna fall, right? But if let's say you were full time into it and you're putting a lot of resources, dedication, and blood, sweat, and tears into it, I think there is a chance for you to build that airplane while you jump, and then you can fly.
Can I just add to what Nadhir has said, right? I think the entrepreneurship journey is not for everyone. Let's be honest with ourselves, right? There is a lot of risk there. So if you're doing it part-time, then you are actually adding to the risk of the venture not working, right? And the other thing is, don't do it yourself, right? Because if you look at the most successful startups, a statistic that the best team are the ones that's gonna succeed, right? So I wouldn't say work on it part-time. Get 2 or 3 like-minded individuals, sell your vision to these guys, get them on board to be co-founders, work with you to develop it. All of you guys could be part-time to work on it together and build something that really the market needs. Like, test it first before you go full-blown building the prototype, because Nadhir mentioned the Lean Startup Methodology by Eric Ries. Get the book, read it, understand how to do validation from there, and then get some like-minded. If you cannot sell your vision to 2 other potential co-founders, then I say you failed, right? Don't waste your time. Go back to a day job. You're probably happier for it. But if you have conviction and you believe on this so strong, you're already taking money, then there should be 2 person that is willing to leave their job to join you, or at least work part-time on it with you, right? So so you need to hustle, basically. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, or just be willing to spend a little bit money and maybe outsource. Just hire a freelance developer on Fiverr or Upwork to build that thing that you're so sure of, right? Don't be afraid that someone's going to steal an idea. Like, Google's a great idea. Go steal that. Go build a Google today. Not going to happen, right? So dare to experiment, take your time. But when you come to people like us, like VC investors, accelerators and all, then there's a level of commitment we already then expect you to have. But if it's this something you're doing in your bedroom projects, yeah, it's a passion, go ahead. If it's taking 10 years to figure it out, go ahead. If you know you need it faster, then you have the answer. You know what you need to do. If you're a great employee, I dare say, quit your job, do it. Doesn't work out because you're so good, you're going to get hired. Everyone's complaining. Everyone's saying talent's so difficult. If you are a talent, you'll get a job. Chill.
Cool. Very quick note. If any of you want some motivation over the weekend to become an entrepreneur, you can go Netflix and watch Upstarts. It's a Bollywood movie, actually. Upstart.
Start, not the Korean one.
I thought the Korean one.
Not startup. Startup is Korea.
Startup.
Yeah.
Upstart is the Indian version.
Oh, I haven't noticed that.
Okay. All right.
Check it out.
Thank you.
I really
thank you.
love the Korean one. I think they did quite well.
The Korean one I couldn't watch. I tried to watch one episode. It's too lovey-dovey, so I couldn't tahan. So that's why I
they
watched
have to stick
Upstart.
with their trend lah. Okay, guys. Sorry.
Or the HBO Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley.
that too.
That's really.
Okay, guys. Since
Okay,
our
wrap up
moderator
then.
dropped off, I'll just step in for a while just to wrap up this session. Nash is having some connection issues. So anyway, we've been discussing for about 1 hour about what do startups need. A lot of points shared. I keep getting WhatsApp messages from the audience saying that this panel has been so informative. So thank you for that. And to wrap up, what I think is, how about let's look at what is, okay, this popular question that I get, right? Usually when people come to me and say, I want to launch a startup, where do I go? What do I do? It's very common, right? I get this all the time through Facebook, other social media channels, even face-to-face. So if you guys were to answer this question, right, what will that be? Like if someone wants to launch a startup in Malaysia, what is the first thing they should do? Let's start with Bikesh.
Go build something. Start a website about it. Or in fact, don't even start a website. Create a Facebook group about that cause and see how many people join to have a discussion about it. If nobody even goes there and Facebook is such the biggest network we have around here, then think about the problem space that you're on. So we always use Facebook as a validation tool. It's the quickest way.
Nice. Okay, how about Johnathan next? You want to add on to that? What do you think is the first thing they should do?
I think for especially entrepreneurs who have no clue, right? As what Nadhir said, right? Go and there are two things. One is go and get the knowledge online because it's all free. There's so much resources available there that can help you, to kickstart your journey, right? That's number one. Number two, Nadhir also mentioned this already. Get yourself a mentor. Joyce, actually one of the person here, she asked a question of, I got all this I need to do. How do I do it? The best thing is to get yourself a mentor who can actually guide you through the process, right? And also answer some of the burning questions that you may have, because a lot of time entrepreneurs don't know they have all these questions, but a mentor who like Bikesh, like yourself, Imbar, and even Nadhir and Yusnee can come in and say, hey, we've done this before, and this is what you can also do.
But make sure you start something when you go see a mentor. Don't go see a mentor say, tell me what to do from now, A, B, C, D, E. Nobody wants to mentor someone who's not even taking a chance to try something on your own, right? So try something, then go get a mentor.
I think I do concur with that, because but there are also going to be mentors. I mean, there are a lot of variety of different mentors that you can go to, that some may be happy to help you on your ideation process. If there's nothing else, I'm going to do a plug for Magic. Just go to Magic, right? Magic is supposed to be there to help people to go on the entrepreneurship journey, right? So do that.
Okay, Yusnee, since you are here, back here, you got the question earlier, right? I wanted to catch him before he gets cut off again. Are you back, Yusnee?
God, great.
Okay, then Nadhir, take it away. So what is the one thing they should do first, besides the two things
cool.
that Bikesh and John has already said?
Okay, number one, we need to fix our internet connection, connectivity. I saw a chat that I saw someone said that. Okay, Johnny. First of all, you need to decide whether you are trying to build something new and innovative, i.e. startup, of which business model is not really set yet. You don't know whether there's even a market for it. You don't know where, who's the target market. This to me is the very definition of a startup, right? So it's something new, something innovative, something exciting, right? A small business, on the other hand, is actually, there's a formula for it, right? So if you want to start a restaurant, there's 100% there are wisdoms out there in terms of starting a restaurant. You need to find a corner lot, you need to buy cheap materials, you need to do some marketing, you need to have fantastic customer service. So there's an SOP as to how to succeed in a restaurant. But a startup, on the other hand, you perhaps don't know. So my advice would be, you got to figure out which one are you targeting? Targeting something that is established and ready, or you want to go to the cowboy lane, right? And of course, the cowboy lane also, there are a lot of different competitors. There are a lot of people trying to solve different pain points with different solutions, right? So of course, you need to figure out, whether your solution has a space in the market. I would say right now in 2021, you know, the e-commerce, Uber for X, like what TheLorry is doing, I think it's been there, done that already. I'm sorry, guys. I think you're probably not gonna be able to raise money or even solve any real pain points if you do like an Uber for X, Grab for X, or like an e-commerce platform. What you need to look into is perhaps blockchain applications of how we could use AI and machine learning to improve the livelihood of society. You know, things like that. That are investable, right? Rather than, you know, what worked in 2014. You know, the e-commerce, you know, Uber for X and platforms. Yeah, that will be my concluding statements.
Right. Thank you for that. I think with that, we can wrap this session because I think Yusnee is still offline. Yusnee, are you back?
Oh my God. I think I pressed more than 5-10 times. Like,
okay, so
I don't know what's
maybe some
going
last
on.
words from you since you're back.
Okay, I think I missed a couple of things. I can't really hear what's going on. But anyway, I think again from the overview, I think I probably talk from Magic perspective. I would love to see more startup and come and talk to us because we are looking at from the early stage all the way to the exit stage. And I think we are not the only one who's trying to do. We work together with people like I mentioned earlier, people like Bikash and Nadhir and all that. They are good, mentor ecosystem builders, even like you guys, in Barraj. But again, we are just government enablers. We need all the support from the private sector as well. So, universities. But as entrepreneur, I think this is something like Bikash mentioned. Start something, and take that first step. And the first step could also come and talk to us and see how we can support you guys. Government can also put a program and platform, but we need those people who are the beneficiary to take the opportunity, because sometimes we run the program, we are like screaming to get participant. I don't know why. So please come and talk to us.
All right, thank you, Yusnee. So guys, do check out all our panelists. They all run amazing programs, and especially Magic. They have so many programs for startups. And all you have to go to their websites, right? Sometimes when people ask me questions like this, what do I do? I go, I'm like, Google, right? And you'll find a lot of resources there. And all our government agency partners have so many programs. Every week there's a new program coming up, and people like Johnathan here, Nadhir, because they always involve some program. They are either creating the programs or they're involved in programs like this and other programs that are helping startups out there to do so many great things. With that, I would like to end this session. And thank you so much to all the panelists for sharing all your thoughts today. It's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you to all as well for tuning in and asking questions and joining us this morning. So guys, stay tuned. We got another panel session coming up right after this. So once that goes live, do join in and join in the next discussion as well. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.